It's time to reassemble the bobbin winder. It was loud in my filming area, so it's voiceover time. There are 3 springs on the bobbin winder. There's a small one here that goes into the main casting that attaches to the body of the machine. And onto that spring goes this foot or finger or what have you that rides the bobbin thread and releases the bobbin winder when you're done. I got this backwards the first time here. It should be facing inside the bobbin winder because but I figured it out as I put the next part on. So that spring has 2 tails on it. One pokes into a hole inside the casting, and the other one pokes into a hole on that foot lever flipper. And then the upper arm here has this spring that goes in, and that is what pops the arm away from the arm with the drive wheel away from the machine when the bobbin is full. Again, I put this lever in and realized it was backwards. This lever is the engagement button, and under it is the spring that actually pushes the bobbin winder against the machine. It's a pretty clever design because when you push the button down, it engages the spring to hold the tire against the hand wheel. But I don't know if it has quite enough pressure. Also, this, like, I spun this and spun this and spun this when I got it free, and it does turn, but I don't know if it turns as freely as it should, and I can't get the shaft out to clean it properly. So this is where I realized that I had the finger on backwards, so I had to pop this all apart and turn that first chrome piece around. But I've had this apart a few times, obviously, and done a lot of cleaning. So flip that over. There is a tiny bit of tension on this first spring, so when you put it in, the hole on that foot doesn't quite, or that finger doesn't quite match the spring or the hole for the screw. So I started the screw here, and then once it starts to tighten, you can see I'm using my thumb to move that foot so that it allows the screw to tighten, and then there's that teeny bit of tension so that it flips in place. And then of course that all fell apart when I set it aside. So the that spring has a long side and a short side, but more importantly, it has bends in it so that both of the spring tails will come out together in the slot in this upper arm. So there's the screw and the upper arm, and then those 2 tails are coming out of a slot. And then that spring is held in place by the button piece of that latch. And you need to make sure that those 2 spring tails are in that slot and the spring will only fit one way, and those tails pop out of the slot, and that is, I believe, the long tail to the back. You can see I'm checking the latch, so when you push the top levered button down, it lifts the latch up and allows the bobbin winder to go down and touch the wheel. And then as the bobbin fills, that finger that goes on the bobbin lifts and lets the latch free up again. And then that's when the big spring in the upper arm is supposed to pop the winder free. The fingers for that lower spring, or for that bigger spring, you just have to move them around until you get the mechanism working the way you want, because they hook in there and they hook one way. This last spring I've tried installing it first and then using this screw to hold the button and that last spring that goes under the button in place, but it makes it harder to get the arm screw in the middle there. So if you leave the retainer screw and that final spring that goes under the button out, then that will make it easier to assemble the rest of the mechanism, and then you can just stick that last spring under the button and put the final screw in to retain it. And that screw doesn't tighten, it just provides a slider for the button. There is also a tiny piece that goes in the end of the screw, and that holds the spring in place underneath the button. So I have this together. I will discover that middle spring was backwards,